Hello and welcome to the May 31st Special Council meeting. I am Jim Nash. I am the City Council President, and I will be presiding ever so briefly this evening, as we will soon be recessing to allow the City Council Committee on Finance to hold a public hearing on the mayor's proposed FY 2023 budget. This hearing will be led by Councilor Maori, the Chair of Finance, and the hearing will run over the next 2 evenings as we hear from 6 city departments. As this is a special council meeting, we will not be setting aside time for public comment. However, we will soon be in a public hearing where all that wish to speak to departmental budgets presented tonight will have a chance to share their thoughts. Public comment will be back on the agenda for our regularly scheduled City Council meeting this Thursday, June 2nd. Before we proceed, I need to let everyone know that this meeting and all participating on Zoom will be audio and video recorded. I now call the City Council to order. Laura, can you please call the roll?
Sure. Councilor Elkins, not present. Councilor Foster.
Here.
Councilor Gore. I see that she's
Not here.
here.
I saw her
but
before.
perhaps not able to.
No,
she
she
here?
said here, but I couldn't hear her voice.
I could too.
Okay, I thought she was unmuted, but
She's
I'll
there.
work on that. Okay, Councilor Jarrett,
Here.
Councilor Labarge,
Here,
Councilor Maori,
Here.
Councilor Moulton,
Here.
Councilor Nash,
Here.
and Councilor Perry.
Here.
Okay. And let's work to Councilor Gore. Are you able to unmute?
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay.
little faintly, but yes, we hear you. Excellent. Okay. Okay, now that we are convened, we will recess for Finance Committee to hold the public hearing on the FY 2023 budget. Councilor Maori, the floor is yours.
Okay. So welcome to the May 31st public hearing on the city's budget. You are continuing to be audio and video recorded. I'm just going to read the blurb here about this public hearing. The City Council Committee on Finance will hold a public hearing in accordance with the Charter of Northampton, Massachusetts, Article 7, Finance and Fiscal Procedures, Section 7-4, Action on the Operating Budget, a public hearing. City Council Committee on Finance will consider the proposed FY 2023 budget and hear all persons who wish to be heard thereon. Let's vote to, looking for a vote to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
second it.
Oh, I think we need to
Do a
call the roll
call.
call on finance.
Ah,
Yes,
yes, roll call on finance.
Sure. Councilor Labarge,
yes,
Councilor Maori,
Yes.
Councilor Moulton,
Yes.
and Councilor Nash.
Yes, or here.
Okay.
And now I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
second it.
Okay.
A push.
And, okay, roll call, Councilor Labarge,
Yes,
Councilor Maori,
Yes.
Councilor Moulton,
Yes.
and Councilor Nash.
Yes.
Okay. So the public hearing has been open. Let me just explain the format for those out there. The format will be that each department will do a budget presentation. And after the presentation, it will be followed by counselors who will be asking any questions they have or comments. And then we'll open it up for the public to make comments and ask questions. So we're going to do it department by department with a question and answer period after each department. And folks can ask more than one question, but they'll go back to the queue and I'll try to go through that. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. We have a timer. If you hear the timer, you can start wrapping up your comments. And Councilor Moulton has generously agreed to be jotting down the questions that come up so we can periodically throw them to the department head or the mayor, whoever feels who would like to answer the questions from the public or the councilors. So our first, let's see. Our first, you know what, so also I just want to mention that in a public hearing, comments are supposed to pertain to the subject, which in this case is the city's budget. And ideally with this format, you'll be asking or making comments about the department that is currently, you know, at play. That's how I'd like to see it go. So our first up for in terms of presentation, yes, Councilor Jarrett.
Before you get to central services, I need to
Yes.
make a statement and recuse myself. So as a member of the Pedal People Cooperative, I can't participate in this item due to a conflict of interest, as Pedal People has a pre-existing contract with the Central Services Department. So I'll be turning off my video and audio, and I may pop back in if I have a specific question that's unrelated to that contract. Thanks.
All right, we won't take it personally. Got it. So we have our shiny new director, Patrick McCarthy, with us. Welcome. And you have the floor for presenting your budget.
Good evening. Can
Evening.
everyone hear me?
Yeah, go a little bit louder, please.
Need it a little louder, okay.
Yep.
Does that make any difference?
Much better. Thank you,
Oh,
Patrick.
good. Okay, good evening. It's nice to see everyone. I hope everyone enjoyed their long weekend, if they had one. Just to go over very briefly, just an outline of what Central Services does and what our department responsibilities are. The Central Services Department oversees grounds, maintenance, heating, cooling, plumbing, electrical, security, fire detection and protection, custodial, renovations and construction operations, and capital programs for the city and school buildings. Central Services maintains approximately 792,000 square feet of facilities, including City Hall, the municipal building, Memorial Hall, the police station, the Maine and Florence fire stations, the senior center, James House, the Academy of Music, 6 schools in the Northampton Public School District, and the Department of Public Works facilities. Central Services operates the municipal mail delivery system, manages the city and school facilities office and custodial supplies program, solicits and secures natural gas, electricity supply contracts for municipal and school facility operations, and houses the energy and sustainability officer as a staff member. Central Services also oversees the maintenance and capital programs for the E.J. Gare Garage, which is approximately 168,000 square feet. The Gothic Street parking structure, which is 52,000 square feet, and multiple city parking lots, and coordinates and upgrades for the city's streetlight system. Since Dave Pomerant's retirement in February of this year, I've spent the last couple of months becoming familiar with both the Central Services and the Parking Maintenance Department budgets. Both fiscal year 23 budgets are straightforward with no major changes. To start off with Central Services, the fiscal year 23 budget, starting off with the PS budget, the payroll budget, there are no changes in the number of staff. There are presently 3 full-time vacancies and 1 part-time vacancy. These vacancies are comprised of 2.5 custodians and my previous position as the project facilities coordinator. There is a small increase in the budget for the new internal hire of the department's new admin assistant. And overall, there's just a 2% increase in PS budget from last year. And I think it's basically related to the cost of living expenses or increases. For the O&M budget, the O&M has for the most part remained level with some line item reductions to offset other budget line item changes. There are some increases in the following line items that are related mostly to utility increases. The ones I'm going over that are a little higher than last year are electricity, gas, water, stormwater, grounds, and architectural/engineering. As far as the electricity, the budget has increased by $40,467 to accommodate increased costs for electricity. We are presently reviewing our existing electric supply contracts expected to change this November 22. This increase in the budget is due to the volatility in the current energy markets that are trending upward. Gas is only being increased by $4,819 for the same reason. And the city's present gas supply contracts are good until December 2023. Both water and stormwater have been increased. The fiscal 22 cost of water increased, so we have adjusted accordingly by increasing the 23 water budget by $4,645. And the stormwater we have increased by $10,000, which is directly related to water. The grounds budget was increased by $6,000 due to the increased cost of keeping the main campus clean and increases in grounds related materials. And lastly, architectural and engineer, we increased that by $10,000 to cover additional costs associated with upcoming projects, i.e. the dog kennel, 33 King Street, the Housing Resilience Center, etc. And that wraps up the central services budget. Onto the parking maintenance budget. The payroll is going to increase by $26,253. And this is just due to changing one existing part-time position to a full-time position. The employee was previously partially paid through the tax collector's parking enforcement department. This is now being paid out of the parking maintenance budget. As O&M, the overall O&M budget has been actually decreased by $24,568 to offset other budget line item changes. There are only 3 increases in the parking maintenance budget, and they are electricity, gas, and trash removal. The electricity was increased by $8,006 to accommodate increased electricity cost. The gas has only been increased by $416. Trash removal has been increased by $5,000. And lastly, the OOM budget was increased by $15,000 for increased cost in parking equipment related to what's called the Parkeon pay-by-plate system, which considers data cost and coin collection extras. That wraps up the parking maintenance budget. Just briefly, the fiscal 23 capital projects, along with ongoing maintenance, the capital projects include in the schools, energy management system upgrades at JFK Middle School, and ventilation and greenhouse gas emissions reductions work at Leeds and Jackson Street Schools, and the purchase of an electric school maintenance van. With the city buildings, we have parking lot expansion at the main fire headquarters, window and ventilation upgrades. I'm sorry, let me say that again, not window, only ventilation upgrades at the DPW administration building, heating system upgrades at the municipal building, and we're also going to be purchasing a hybrid city maintenance vehicle. And lastly, for the parking facilities, as far as the capital, budget, we will be buying a new electric skid steer. Can you hear me?
Yep.
And that concludes my report.
I can't hear.
Counselor Mary not unmute?
Can you hear
Oh,
me?
there's you.
There
Now.
you
I can't
are.
hear you. I
Oh,
assume
you're
it's
muted.
time for questions.
Yes.
I'll work on why I cannot hear anyone, but if you like to raise your hand, looks like Councilor Labarge has a question or comment. Why don't you go
Yes.
and I will work on my sound.
Thank you, Counselor. Patrick, you talked about the 3 vacancies, the custodian at the police department and also the custodian split JFK. Where is the other half of that one? You say split on it?
Let me look. So basically what I have is 2 full-time custodians and 1 part-time at JFK.
Okay, all right, because it says split JFK. And then the other one is the facilities project coordinator. There's a vacancy on that. Have you been interviewing, Patrick, to fill these positions?
Not yet. We've only received a couple applications and we haven't selected any for interviews as of yet.
Okay, thank you. Also, too, on the,
Sorry.
let's say I have questions here. The telephone is at 75,000 and the postage, what is that both included together? If you look down on there,
Telephone, yeah. No, I would say postage is 75 and the telephone is 6,500. Correct?
yeah, because I don't see that figure of 5,500 on mine.
65.
Oh, 65, okay. Thank you on that. And I think that's it. Also too, on the trash removal at 30,000, and I thought I heard you say that went up, what, another 5,000
And in the parking, it
in the parking?
yes, it went up $6,000.
6,000. When did
Oh, I'm
that,
sorry, wait a minute. I'm looking at the wrong page. 5,000. in the-
5,000? When did that go up?
Well, it's just an adjustment in the budget to compensate for increases in trash removal
Okay,
from last year. And it's also just basically certain items were changed to offset other budget line item changes.
okay. How, on this page 49, the medical/testing, what's that all about, Patrick?
My understanding is that when you hire somebody, there's certain lab testing that needs to be done. I think that's basically it.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. I did notice the increase on the stormwater at $50,000. That was
Yeah.
a significant jump on that.
Mhm.
And I have a lot of residents who are very concerned about the stormwater fee in the city.
Mhm.
I was very concerned about that telephone and the postage at $75,000. I couldn't believe the price of that.
That's for the whole entire city.
Yes. Oh, okay. All right. I guess that's it. And I want to thank you, Patrick,
Thank you.
for being the new director. You've got your hands full. This is a huge department, a huge department. And I have to say with David Pomerantz, he did an excellent job. And I know with your resume and everything that you will do great also. Thank you.
Thank you for your confidence, Counselor.
You're welcome.
Well, good news, I got my sound back, so I can actually hear you all. It's going swimmingly. Yes, Mayor.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to say that I'm exhausted from listening to Director McCarthy outline everything that Central Services does. Every
Wow.
time I hear it, it's just a little bit overwhelming, everything that they cover. So I thank him for all that work. And Councilor Labarge, I just wanted to point out that, so yes, telephone is for the entire city, but those, both telephone and the postage line items, there's no increase from last year on those.
I know, I don't understand it though, at $75,000. I mean, that's a lot of
So,
phone calls and postage.
right, so anything that we mail, right, is going through Central Services. So think of all the citywide mailings that have to happen.
Okay, thank you.
It does cost a good
I
deal of
know.
money, but there's certain things that we do have
I
to.
just want people to understand this.
And also the stormwater line, just that line has traditionally been underfunded and we've then had to make it up. So we just made an adjustment to make it actually just sort of in line with reality of what Central Services had been actually spending every year. So we just we made that adjustment to just come in line with reality.
Okay, because I thought I saw a jump on that.
It is an increase, but that's not actually an increase as to what we're spending. We just finally budgeted for what they've been
that.
spending for years. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yes, Councilor Nash.
Thank you. Director McCarthy, that was a great report for somebody who's only, we appointed you 2 weeks ago. You're like an old pro.
I had help.
Well, clearly you were listening you took the lessons. So nice job.
Thank you.
And also I sensed your handiwork in coming up with a lot of those figures over the last few weeks while we had Director Pomerantz no longer in the job. So thank you.
Thank you.
So you mentioned the upgrades in ventilation to a number of buildings. And I'm interested in knowing, I know that a reason for a portion of that has to do with energy efficiency and us meeting our climate goals. But I'm wondering how much of that efficiency, how much is related actually to COVID as well? That, improving ventilations in different buildings, both the schools, you mentioned the DPW headquarters. Is that like a benefit that can go hand in hand with that? Is the need for better ventilation around COVID also part of the plans here?
Yes. Specifically, the Department of the Locust Street admin building is in sore need of ventilation. And it's going to be an ERV, so it will be energy efficient air exchanges along with fresh air makeup. So yes, that's related to COVID directly and also energy efficiency. The ventilation that I mentioned basically was at this point, 3 schools, Leeds, Jackson, and Bridge. And those are actually a part of the gas emission reductions, as well as any changes that we can make that will, improve the ventilation will certainly be made. Does that answer your question or?
Yeah, I think so. It means that, what I'm hearing is that, I'm sure when Central Services was first making these proposals, it was all about energy efficiency. And then, with the pandemic, it's like, well, there's also other boxes we're checking off here in terms of the, refreshing the air within, structure. You're going to know far more about this than I do.
Yeah.
And that by getting fresh air in all of our buildings is going to help with especially with an airborne disease.
Right.
So, anyway, yeah, so that was my question, and
Yep.
I think we'll keep asking it
Okay.
because I think this will be an ongoing issue. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Counselor Moulton.
Thank you. Thank you, Director McCarthy, for that detailed presentation. The only question, I don't think I quite understood your mention of a study of the city's electricity supplier or electricity contract later in the year and what that might produce in terms of changes. Can you be a bit more explicit about that?
Well, Central Services solicits and secures natural gas and electricity supply contracts for the municipal and school facility operations. So basically it's electricity and gas. And presently we are under a separate contract with a electricity and gas supplier through each utility, National Grid and Eversource. And the supplier, we buy the utility directly from the supplier at a set rate, and it's under contract. And we're trying to be proactive, considering the present market, to look towards November and try to decide now if we can lock in figures that are actually better than potentially would be in later in the year.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Counselor Foster.
Thank you. It took me a while to get my cursor to unmute. And welcome, Director McCarthy. Thank you for that presentation. I actually just have two questions for you that have come from constituents. One question is around EV chargers that had me wondering that the parking maintenance chargers. I'm wondering if there's any maintenance or the electricity associated costs with those. And I'm sorry, I didn't give you prep. I don't know if you have those numbers off the top of your head, but I'm just curious, like if they need a lot of maintenance. The other question that came is about the potential for adding the fast chargers. So I was just curious what your thoughts were on that.
I'm not sure I can't give figures, but I do know that Central Services does pay for the EV chargers, as well as for the electric bikes, recharging them. So I know we're putting extra EV chargers in the Roundhouse parking lot, and we're also putting extra EV chargers at the Maine Fire Department with the new expansion of the parking lot. And I would have to rely on Chris to answer whether they're the trickle or fast chargers. I'm not quite sure. I know that one of them at the Maine Fire is actually going to be to purchase. It's going to be typical of the ones you see around town where you actually have to pay to get the electricity. We're going to have, I think, 3 or 4 new EV chargers at the Maine Fire Department, and one of them will be, pay to use. I don't think I answered both your questions, though, did I? Or
No, I haven't even asked the second one. So had you answered it, it would have been really good. My second question was around some of the cleanups that have happened. I know, certain times some campsite cleanups and things that have needed to happen. And I understand that when we're talking about sharps or other specialized disposal, that a contractor comes in. I don't see that in the Central Services budget. And I'm wondering if that's coming from Central Services, if you could point me to where?
Yes. Well, part of it is they're in both budgets, in the parking maintenance budget, trash removal.
Okay.
I mean, as this time next year, we may end up taking it out of another line item if it becomes too much, but I think that's basically where it's going to come out to start with.
Okay, so it's rolled into the trash removal in both of those for right now. Okay.
Unless, is Charlene on? I don't know if there's another comment there. Sorry, Charlene.
No, not at all. I think also we've used grounds and maintenance as well when needed. That's one of the other line items that I think Central Services has used in the past.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I have a question if I'm looking to see if any other counselors have a question before me. Not seeing any hands. My only questions, I'm just trying to understand the budget better, so with the, when it crosses over with, say, the school department, I mean, so is that formula, that always remains constant? What central service, what's put in central services budget and, what's put in DPW or what's put in the school budget, that's constant. In other words, if it's about, say, ventilation, that would possibly be split 50-50 with central services or something like that, whatever the formula is. Is that true? Does it stays the same each year, deciding which department pays for what?
Well, I think the rule of thumb, if it has to do with the building itself, it is central services.
Okay. And
So
right.
the barn at the DPW, although it's the DPW's, it's still a building and central services would take care of it.
And that would be reflected in your budget, or it looks like,
Correct.
and some
Correct.
things are split 50-50, I see, or something. Facilities, court, oh, I see,
The salaries.
the salaries, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, that's
part
what I was
of
trying to
those are shared
understand.
with it. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing any other questions, so I think we can bid you adieu. Oh, wait, there he is, coming from on deck, Counselor Jarrett.
Yeah,
Nice to see you
thanks.
again.
Just have a quick question about the custodian, how the custodians are divided up for. So it looks like there are 2 for the police department and then 2.5 for the rest of the city. And well, the split JFK means part of it's at JFK, meaning it's under the school budget, and then the other part would be for the city, so that maybe adds up to 3. So is that accurate in terms of?
Well, we have 1 full-time custodian at the police department that's needed for second shift. We don't have a custodian second shift now. And then there's another one for the senior center.
Mhm.
That's a full-time. And the other part-time would be the JFK custodian who takes care of the pools on the weekends. It's basically 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. And we do have a hard time filling that position. And that does come out of I'm pretty sure all of it comes out of the central services, unless it's. Yeah, I'm not seeing it come out of school budget. It's only central services.
Right.
But,
But
and then
so-
the third
sorry.
one, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say the third one is my previous position. So
Right.
2.5 custodians in 1.
Oh, in terms of vacancies, right.
Correct.
But so departments such as the fire department, do they take care of their own, or are they're part of the ones listed as city here?
Yeah, they're listed, basically we have certain custodians that switch off, and part of their job is to go over and take care of the main fire. And that's how we do that. We don't have a specific full-time custodian for the fire department. The person who may be cleaning a memorial hall during the week or city hall will take part of their day and go over and do the main fire department during the week.
Great, thanks for that explanation.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions from counselors or the public? I don't see any raised hands. So I think we are done with central services. Thank you so much, Director McCarthy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next, we are going to hear a presentation from Chief Davin, I believe, about the Fire and Rescue Department.
Yes, thank you. Quickly, just to clarify Councilor Jarrett's question, the custodian that Director McCarthy mentioned actually takes care of the central dispatch upstairs. We don't have any custodians that take care of the fire department. We do all that in-house. So just to clarify that, the question there. So good evening. I'd like to just give you a quick overview of our fire department budget. You'll see that it increased slightly from last year, and I'll hopefully do a good job of explaining why. So currently, we operate out of 2 fire stations. So we've got our headquarters station down here on Carlin Drive, and we've got our Florence station up on Maple Street. And within those 2 stations, we house 4 fire engines, 1 ladder, 1 rescue truck, 5 ambulances, 1 command vehicle, 1 boat, 1 UTV, and 5 staff vehicles. So you can see we have quite a bit of equipment. That, you know, our maintenance costs are pretty significant here in our department. We employ 68 sworn firefighter personnel, 1 full-time mechanic, and 1 full-time administrative assistant. And those numbers will not change next year. And I do currently have 2 vacancies. We just hired 4 new firefighters at the beginning of May. They're finishing up their training this week and will be heading out to shift. And I have 1 firefighter, 1 potential applicant, hopefully going to start within the next couple of weeks. And I have an upcoming retirement, so that's going to be my 2nd vacancy. We run 4 shifts here, A, B, C, and D shift. Each shift has 16 personnel assigned to it, and our members work a 24-hour rotating shift. So they're here for 24 hours. Their shift is 24 hours long. The minimum daily staffing that we will run with is 13 between the 2 stations. And between those 13 people, between the 2 stations, they staff 1 fire engine and 1 ambulance in Florence. And at headquarters, they'll staff 2 fire engines, 2 ambulances, and our command vehicle. So last year, 2020-21 was a record year for our department. It's the highest call volume we've ever seen. We answered 7,645 calls for service. And of those calls, 52 were fires and 5,701 were EMS calls. So that's about an average of 21 calls per each 24-hour shift. So we're pretty busy. And I think one of the most interesting things, doing the statistics for last year, 55% of the time last year, we had multiple calls for service at the same time. So that means we had, you know, either a fire call and an ambulance call at the same time, or 2 fire calls. So 55% of the time, our folks are answering multiple calls for service. One of the things we've noticed and we've been keeping an eye on over the last probably 6 to 8 months is our mutual aid to other cities and towns. Last year, we provided fire mutual aid 22 times, but our EMS, our ambulance mutual aid was, we went out of the city 400 times. So that's a pretty significant increase over the last several years. We've never seen mutual aid numbers for EMS that high. And there's several factors that are causing that. And I'm not going to get into that right now, but again, when we leave the city like that and we're answering calls in other communities, obviously that's an increase to our costs, right? We're spending more money on equipment. We're spending more money on fuel. It's wear and tear on our vehicles. So, you know, there is a cost to go out of town. And we also had to call for mutual aid EMS last year 88 times, which is pretty high for us. Running our 3 ambulances 24/7, we very rarely need that much assistance. But again, when we're leaving the city and we get a call, well, then sometimes we have to call for help ourselves. So that number has gone up quite a bit too. So as our call volume increases, obviously our costs also increase. Our equipment and operating costs have risen significantly over the last several months. And, you know, I've had some long conversations with the mayor about some of our vendors. You know, they've told us to prepare for a 10 to 20% increase this year. And in fact, you know, we ordered a brand new ambulance July 1st of 2020, and we still have not received that ambulance. And that is due to parts delays and various other things out of our control. So we're hoping that that new ambulance is going to be here in June. They're saying it's going to be here. I'll believe it when I see it. But, that's just kind of an example of, kind of what, not just our department, it's nationwide, they're waiting on parts, waiting on equipment, stuff like that. So hopefully we'll get it next month. So these monthly and, sometimes weekly price increases and equipment delays, obviously they're frustrating, but they're also very difficult to budget for. We've had quotes for equipment and have vendors tell us that, listen, that price is good for a week, and every week you wait, add 10%. So it's been challenging, we're working through it. Right now we're sitting down with the new budget year. We're looking at different vendors for our EMS supplies, different vendors for firefighting equipment. And we're going to try to lock in, some long-term contracts at a lower price. So we are doing our due diligence. We're hopeful. We'll see what happens, but that's really all I have for my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Chief. I see that Councilor Labarge has a question.
Thank you. Chief,
Yes.
thank you for explaining about the custodian for the fire department, because I'm happy that you explained that, because as long as I've been a counselor, there was never a custodian there on a full-time basis or whatever. So thank you for that. But what is your total amount of your budget?
The total amount is
6 million something?
yes, $6,653,149.
Okay. Anyways, 3 vacancies, that's what it says on our budget book, but you have stated tonight that 2 vacancies have been filled, correct? And
I had 6 at the beginning of May. We filled 4 of them. I have 1 vacancy, and then I have 1 firefighter retiring on June 7th. So that's going to be my 2nd vacancy, and we'll be advertising and hopefully be able to fill that position fairly soon.
Could you, I'd like to hear about the COVID-19, how it actually affected your department, because I know you were busy with ambulance calls on people being sick with the COVID.
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously, COVID was very busy for us. I haven't looked at the recent numbers of how many folks COVID positive that we've transported. Last time I looked, it was over 600. So I'm sure it's probably around 700 by now, if not higher. I'm proud to say though, we're very lucky. Throughout 2020, I think we only had 6 folks that came down with COVID, and that was mostly us in the office.
Wow.
So it didn't really affect our operations at all. So that was good. When the new COVID variant came through there a few months ago, the Omicron or whatever it was called, we've had several folks come down with COVID with that variant. Some of them just not deathly ill, but they're sick, couldn't come to work. Right now I do have one firefighter out with COVID, but honestly, other than transporting sick people, we were lucky in our department where we didn't have a bunch of folks actually get sick and have to miss work. So we're happy about that.
I also want to thank you and your department with the COVID, going down the senior center and helping down there to administer, the shots and so forth. That was very caring. And I want to thank you very, very much for all your support with the COVID-19, helping our city to fight that terrible COVID-19. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And also too, I remember when we went to the fire station, made a trip there, and you talked about the ambulance and apparently ordered it in 2020, hopefully getting it. And I really hope you do get that you deserve it. And hopefully it will come in June.
I appreciate that. And we're hoping it gets here soon, because we're actually, the one that we're getting rid of is actually going over to Hadley Fire Department. So they are planning on starting up their own ambulance service over there. So they've been kind of waiting patiently too now for a long time, because they need that ambulance to get up and running over there too. So we're hopeful.
And I heard you also talk about the economy itself, affecting the fire department, your cost of equipment, your cost of fuel down the line. It's everywhere. Every business
Absolutely.
owner is complaining of the same problems. Thank you very much. And please tell all your firemen and firewomen, thank you for doing what you've done for our city. Very
I
well
appreciate that. I'll
appreciated.
pass it along. Thank you.
Hey, I see President Nash has a question.
Okay, thank you. Chief Davin, first of all, you looked great for the parade the other day. I already told you that. But also, I want to thank you for getting that letter out to the folks at Salvo House, clarifying what folks are supposed to do during a fire emergency. That question came up in a meeting last week with some of the residents, and that I really appreciated your response. And, in contacting Kara, and I bet those notices are up right now. And I want to thank you for taking care of that.
No, I appreciate it. And thank you for bringing it to our attention. Obviously that's a concern for us. Those folks are some of our most endangered folks, I guess you would say. And, I don't want them having the wrong information and
Right.
doing something that they shouldn't do if there was a fire. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Well, it also had me thinking of my next question, an update on the ladder truck, and also our what the capabilities of our current truck are. So
That's a great question. And I just had a conversation with the mayor this morning. So luckily, kind of a long story, I'll keep it short, but we were able to locate a part for the ladder. Our mechanic was able to get it operating. We actually had it respond up to Smith Vocational. It did work. It's the first time I've actually seen it operate at a fire and not get scared and quit. So that was good. It's a temporary fix. So we don't trust it all that much. So we are going to continue to bring in Hadley and East Hampton automatic aid. So any reported smoke or fires, then, our ladder is going to respond, but we'll also have those other cities and towns responding just in case it doesn't work. So I'm glad we were able to get it running because we are trading it in for the new ladder. So it does have to be operational. So I'm, hats off to my mechanic. He searched long and hard. E1, which is the company that made the ladder, they're obviously not very happy with us since, we've complained about it and jumped up and down about it. They were kind of holding the part hostage. They wanted almost $5,000 for a $500 part. So, I was not willing to pay $5,000 for that part. And luckily our mechanic had some connections out of state and was able to find it for $500. So that was good news.
oh, I think you let a little bit of the longer story out of the bag there. So thank you. And also, this is it's related to fire. It's not specifically, this question is, and I think the mayor could be helpful here, but that, since the fire at Smith Folk, I've had a number of questions from people saying, are we insured? Is there insurance covering for fire and for the weather event that ripped off part of the building? I've been assuming that, and this isn't a fire rescue thing, but fire rescue was there. I'm wondering if you could enlighten me on that, Mayor.
You're really stretching the bounds of.
I really stretched it here. Councilor Maori may shut me off.
Just one
So,
troublemaker.
Charlene, if you know the answers to this, I know that the roof, they started working on it last week, like immediately after. Do you know, Charlene, if insurance is fully covering that?
I don't know. I would assume it's fully covering everything except for the deductible.
Okay. And I'm sure there's insurance for the fire as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and we have gotten several requests for our fire report from their insurance company. The insurance company has sent out their own fire investigators just to kind of, make sure that they agree with our cause and origin. So that is in the works. So I'm sure they're getting all the information they need.
Yeah, I fully expect it to be covered, minus the deductible.
Well, that's what I was thinking, and I want to thank Chief Davin for saving me once again here by bringing it back to fire rescue and the reports that how that's really going to drive the insurance process here. And so I'll be able to answer that question for constituents. So anyway, those are my questions, and thank you, Chief Davin.
Thank you.
Hey, any other counselors? Yes, Counselor Gore.
Thanks, Chief Davin, for your report. I just wanted to ask if there's a part in the budget that says FTEs by unit. Is that full-time employees by unit?
Yes, it is, Counselor. So by unit, I'm assuming that, so our 4 deputy chiefs are in there. They have their own bargaining unit, the Deputy Chiefs Association. And then the captains and the firefighters are in their own bargaining unit, Local 108. So I'm assuming that's by unit, yes.
It says 70, but you said you have 68 working now?
So I have 68 sworn firefighting personnel. And then if you add my full-time mechanic and my full-time administrative assistant, that's where we get the 70.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, counselors. Don't see any more hands, and I don't see any hands from the public. So I guess we will say thank you, Chief Davin.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. It's good to see you. And now we have, we're going to, oh, yes, Counselor Jarrett.
Oh, and another recusal. So
Really pulling the heartstrings.
yeah, I'm so sorry you'll miss me. So Pedal People Cooperative has a financial interest in the decisions that are made regarding the Locust Street Transfer Center, which is part of the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund budget that DPW oversees. So I'll be recusing myself, but again, I might come in at the end to ask questions that are unrelated to the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund budget.
Thank you, Counselor Jarrett, and for being a good role model.
Yeah.
So yeah, Director Lascali is here to give us an overview of the Department of Public Works. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to speak about our operations and our proposed FY23 budget. So the DPW's budget is separated into several divisions. So I'll talk about the general fund first. The general fund is comprised of administration and engineering, highways, which includes streets and fleet maintenance, snow and ice, and our forestry, parks, and cemeteries divisions. So altogether, that is the general fund section of the DPW's budget. And then we have the enterprise funds, which are separate from that, but I'll talk a little bit about the general fund first. So within the general fund, we maintain more than 150 miles of paved and unpaved roadways. We have 85 miles of sidewalks, almost 40 bridges, more than 30 signal controlled intersections. So we actually own and maintain all the traffic signals in town, with some exceptions of signals that are owned and operated by Mass DOT. We have more than 150 vehicles and pieces of specialized construction equipment, more than 10,000 public shade trees, 240 acres of athletic fields and parks. We have 4 cemeteries, all of which are active burial grounds and have more than 20,000 monuments. We've actually done quite a bit of work to restore some of those monuments over the years and intend to continue that in the coming year. And we have more than 11 miles of bike paths as well that we are maintaining. Sorry, my dog is barking in the background, so I hope that's not too disruptive. I apologize. So a couple of items of note within this general fund budget. We have contractual obligations to our employees who belong to one of 3 unions. So in the PS side of the house, you will see some increases that are related to contractual obligations that we have to those employees. So cost of living increases as well as step increases for wages. And then there's also slight increases in our overall OM, and this is primarily due to the rising cost of gasoline and diesel. We're paying just about double for diesel right now, more than we were last year at this time, and close to double what we were paying for gasoline. So that's a really significant expense for our operations. We're also seeing substantial increases in the prices of electricity, propane, oil, and across the board, all goods and services. So I'd just call your attention to a couple of items in particular in the highways OOM section. So the road improvements line funds the asphalt that we buy, which it pays to patch potholes and repair trench cuts. Really, it's our year-round pothole patching operation. And the price of the asphalt that we purchase has actually risen by nearly 30% year over year. So that's a considerable amount of money, when you're talking about 2,000 tons of asphalt, to between 2,000 and 3,000 tons of asphalt. That's what we're laying down on an annual basis. And then I'll also mention just another item of note, the roadway markings line pays for all of our roadway markings. So all the paint that you see on pavement everywhere. So our double yellow center lines, our left and right turn arrows, crosswalks, fog lines, anything that's painted on the ground. And we will be putting out a contract actually within the next few weeks, and we will be restriping the entire city, every marking that you see. And that is about 750,000 linear feet of roadway marking. So it is a massive contract and about 300 crosswalks. So quite an undertaking for us to complete that job. So in the enterprise funds, I spoke about water and sewer revenue and operations and capital projects in detail during the rate setting process. But I'll just recap by saying that we operate and maintain very expansive and complex water and sewer systems. The water treatment plant in Williamsburg is flowing nearly 4 million gallons a day of drinking water to the city, and that's running through roughly 160 miles of water mains and related equipment. And our sewer system includes more than 110 miles of sewer lines. We have 7 pump stations. We have a wastewater treatment plant, which is obviously undergoing a significant renovation, as you folks saw when we toured it. So for FY23, we have submitted level funded budgets in the water and sewer enterprises, and the utility rates do remain unchanged. So we are nearing completion of that $10 million phase 1 wastewater treatment plant upgrade project. But at this time next year, we will be very close to starting phase 2 of the upgrade project, which is going to cost in the neighborhood of $20 million. So this is something that's necessary for regulatory and operational reasons. So continued investment in our capital infrastructure. We're also engaged in the engineering design for a couple of really significant projects on the water side, improvements to our reservoirs and improvements to the transmission main, which runs from the water treatment plant to the city limits. So both multi-million-dollar initiatives that will need to be funded on the water side. It does bear repeating that with the imminent closure of Coca-Cola, we will be looking at reductions in revenue starting next calendar year, or early next calendar year, not next fiscal year, but next calendar year. And so with that said, we have engaged the engineering firm Ty and Bond to take a look at our utility rates, take a look at our revenue stream, and to make some recommendations about how to best move forward. So that's a process we'll be moving through in the next few months. But the capital needs of our system remain the same, regardless of Coca-Cola's presence in the city or not. So we have to continue to invest in the infrastructure I just described, regardless of if they're here or not. So like water and sewer, the stormwater and solid waste enterprises are similarly level funded. There are no notable changes. And in closing, I just think it's important for me to take the opportunity to publicly thank the men and women who work for the DPW and who work every day to provide just really essential services to residents and visitors in the city. It's really a pleasure to be here tonight to talk in detail about what we do. And I appreciate the council's ongoing support of our operations. So thank you, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Director. Councilor Labarge.
Thank you. Donna, let's see, administration, you have a vacancy. Did you fill that one yet?
No, Councilor, our vacancy is not yet filled.
Okay, how about highway? I see you have 3 vacancies there, correct?
Yes, we actually have quite a few vacancies throughout the department. Some of our employees are allocated, which means that they're paid out of multiple locations because they're doing work that crosses multiple divisions. So you will see a lot of vacancies. Some of them repeat, some of them do not. We have sort of ongoing recruitment that we do to try to fill these vacancies. But one of the biggest things that is a challenge for us is that we do require a CDL, a commercial driver's license, and other licensure to operate equipment. And these are, specialized licenses, and we are competing with the private sector for folks that can operate a CDL vehicle and can operate the sort of specialty equipment that we use. So we do our best to maintain good staffing levels and to recruit, but the budget definitely reflects the reality of the situation, that we definitely have a high number of vacancies that we are actively trying to resolve, but it is for sure an ongoing challenge for us.
What is the high volume vacancies? Do you have a figure?
I do, Counselor. We're probably a little over 50 in vacancies right now, but we've just hired someone who's assigned to our streets division, and we'll get him trained, and we look forward to filling our other vacancies. But we're definitely moving as fast as we can, but it is a challenge.
It's a big challenge, Donna, and I give you credit. I give you all your staff for working under the conditions that you've been working. The COVID, you had staff with the DPW who had COVID also. I think there's a big problem here. And the big problem is they're looking at other jobs that are paying more money. And I'm hearing this out there. People are looking for higher payer jobs and they're leaving our city. And this is a problem.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Council. We do the best we can to, create as good a working conditions as we can, and to be a good workplace to be. And we have a lot of really dedicated, longtime employees who have chosen to spend their career with us, and that's the type of folks who we hope to recruit in here. But this is a difficult economic environment to operate in, and we will work through it the best we can.
What else do I want to ask you? Okay, I do know that the fuel is a big problem, gas is a big problem, everything is going up. And I would say, what about your equipment, clothing, right down the line? You have to, don't you as a director they have to wear certain equipment, some of your employees, correct? Like their shoes or what, is that also accounted for?
It is. We have quite a bit of safety equipment that's required. depending on the job, all of my employees are required to wear steel-toed boots for their protection and for OSHA compliance. We do give folks a contractual boot allowance for that, which is reflected in the PS budget. So it's a lump sum payment that goes to all unit members to allow them to purchase steel-toed boots. But yes, I mean, the cost of all goods and services that we're purchasing, we're seeing increases of 20 and 30%. Chemicals that we treat our water and wastewater with, the price increases are significant, and they are not single digits. So it is a challenge anytime you're dealing with level funded budgets to work within those constraints of price increases, but needing to buy the things that you need to buy. But, if it were easy, anybody could do it. And we do the best we can with what we've got.
I have to say, with your department, I think between DPW and Central Service are huge departments in the city. And I think a lot of people need to hear exactly why we're buying equipment, why it's costing so much for equipment. And I think you pretty well explained, Donna, exactly how many miles of streets that we have to maintain, the trails right down the line. And as counselors, we hear a lot versus what you don't hear. And we have to explain that to our residents, no matter if it's in your ward or out of our wards, and it's like, I am so pleased with you for coming out and saying exactly what is needed to operate our city and what the cost is to go ahead and make it happen. Thank you. Thank you to Cindy Quinn. I'm going to tell you, you are very, very fortunate to have her and all your male and female staff. And I'm very sad to hear that you lost your main engineer, but you go where the money is, and that's what it's all about, and where you're located. And knowing you, you'll fill those positions. And if there is anything that us counselors can do to help, please let us know.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Moulton. Yes, Councilor Moulton.
Thank you. Thank you. I echo what Councilor Barge just said, and I wanted to probe a little bit more about the impact of the vacancies. I'm looking particularly at the highway division, and I count 5 vacancies among 16 positions listed. So that's about a third of those positions, which seems to me to have a huge impact on the ability to get the work done in the highway division. So can you speak a bit more to the impact on getting the work done, how you're dealing with the vacancies in prioritizing work, and also is there an impact on morale because of staff stretched thin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, the vacancies are one of the biggest challenges right now. So all good questions. What we have to do is we have to prioritize, the volume of requests never lets up. So we have to prioritize based on safety first and foremost. And everything else sort of follows from there. The strategy that we use for this, and I will say, over the years, we always have some level of vacancies. We have never achieved what I would consider to be full staffing. But this is, a particularly trying time. So the way we deal with this is we work overtime. Ultimately it's sort of about man hours to get a job done. Pardon the phrase, but we sort of look at, okay, there's 24 hours of work that are needed here. When can we get it done? So we tend to stay late, or we can work on weekends to sort of backfill what we would typically be doing in a 40-hour week. So we work Saturdays, we work Sundays, we work nights. We can also work holidays. I do need to be careful to not overwork the remaining staff because that can be a problem for morale. That's particularly difficult in the winter time when the demands of our operation are 24/7 and it has to be done. So I am extremely hopeful that the situation will be moving towards resolution as we get later in the year, because if we're running like this in October, November, that starts to become a little bit more problematic. The other thing that I can do is I can choose to contract out some of this work. It's not preferable, particularly in sort of an inflationary environment in which we're operating in right now. But what I try to do is take things, just sort of common sense things that I can contract out and do that just sort of as a stopgap. So, none of these things are ideal. And obviously we'd want to be operating, with a name next to each one of these positions. But if we can't, we do have some level of workaround. But, we appreciate people's patience as we work through a backlog of work orders. And we really do try to hustle and get it done one way or the other.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Counselors. Yes, Counselor Foster.
Thanks, Director LaScalia. I just first wanted to take a minute to thank you and the others in the department. The more I've had a chance to learn about the operations and the foresight, I think you have one of those, I think all city services sort of, for many residents, blend into the background until they're in the foreground. And usually when they're in the foreground, it's because something's not going well. But when our roads are salted and plowed and the water's coming clean out of the tap and all of those things, I know that that's the result of just incredible foresight and thought and hard work from everybody in your department. So thank you for that. And just the question I had for you is actually about the Locust Street transfer station. I think it was last year, the year before, you talked about the price of recycling and that starting to cost the city money. And I was just wondering, first of all, if I'm remembering that correctly, but also where that's at as far as the operations there.
Yeah, also a good question. One of the things that I had to do a couple of years ago was actually insert a line item for recycling collections for $110,000 into the budget because we were sort of losing this revenue stream as we transitioned to a scenario where we had to pay to get rid of our recyclables. And that was just sort of like a moment in time where I believe we made like one payment and then everything shifted and we are actually receiving revenue now. So we're sort of right back where we were before this even started. So this is a very limited revenue stream from us, so for us right now. So it was bad enough that this was like the revenue was going away, but then we're actually having to pay for it, so it's like a double negative. But we're sort of, we've sort of walked 360 degrees and we're right back where we started. So we have a limited revenue stream. But unfortunately, it's very difficult. When I set this budget, I still have to prepare for a scenario, based on a contract that we were obligated to sign. So we're very, kind of at the mercy of market fluctuations. So I suppose at any moment, things could change. But right now, no expense and a limited revenue stream associated with our recyclables.
I had a question. Oh, did another counselor have a question first? I guess not. My question was, and I guess in a way it's not a budget question because I believe the cold storage unit we already approved that budget, years ago. But so I guess I'm stretching the public hearing a little bit. I was just curious about that. I don't, if there's anything reflected in the budget or any progress on that or.
Yeah, so just for a little context, some years ago, there was conversation about a brand new DPW facility. And one of the things that we've done over the years is transitioned away from the concept of a new facility, but moving towards the idea of storage, just cold storage to get our vehicles and equipment out of the weather. So we actually just built one of these structures up in Williamsburg at the water treatment plant plant, which is functioning beautifully. And I believe it was 2018 in Mayor Narkowitz's capital plan, 2 additional storage unit buildings were funded, one at Spring Grove Cemetery and one at Locust Street. So what we have done since then is a significant amount of design and permitting. So the status of that project, so there is no money reflected in this budget for either of those structures because both have been funded in prior years. And where we are with that is we are in permitting right now before those can go to bid.
Okay. Thank you for answering that. And I will say before I see Councilor Nash, I just also want to thank you briefly because you're so responsive to my constituents, and not just responsive, but you take so much care in addressing their questions and concerns, and it really makes my job easier, and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
President Nash, did you have a question?
Thank you, Councilor Maori. Director LaScalia, yeah, I don't have any questions. It's really just a statement of, that the efforts that your department and the mayor have gone through over the last 5 months to, bring us up to date on, tours of facilities, capital improvements plan, the various financial orders, we just recently had one related to the wastewater facility that I just, I'm sure I'm speaking for all of us, we just feel very up to date and informed as to what our DPW is up to, and that, we're looking at the budget here, and this, that's what we've been seeing out there on when we've been up to, the water treatment plant, or down to Locust Street, or down to down the street here to the wastewater plant, that we've seen this, and I just really appreciate being so immersed in knowing exactly what's going on. So just wanted to thank you for that.
Thanks, Councilor.
Tours are good. Any councilors, any more questions? I don't see any public. Okay, thank you very much, Director.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you.
Good night. Okay, so up next, our last department, hybrid departments. We've got the Department of Health and Human Services and the Community Care Department. So we have Director Meredith O'Leary here, as well as Implementation Director Sean Donovan. Welcome. Good evening.
Hi, thank you.
Hi. Oh, and also I see Michelle Ferry's here. I didn't see you first.
I brought a crew.
Good. I love it.
So those are tough acts to follow. Mine isn't as super sexy as theirs were, but I'll do my best. So first off, before I begin, I'd like to thank you all for being such amazing stewards of the city's fiscal resources during the current and past recent years. Not having been part of the budget hearing process the last 10 years as my role as public health director, what I've learned through listening tonight is what a vital role you play in ensuring that we allocate our resources responsibly in accordance with our community values and with a view of helping our residents thrive and prosper. So I just want to commend you on such a huge job that you guys take on here. So before I begin, I just want to remind you all, not too long ago on May 19th, City Council voted to approve the mayor's first administrative order, restructuring the Northampton Health Department to Department of Health and Human Services. And as a Department of Health and Human Services, the responsibilities are to protect, preserve, and promote the health and well-being of all Northampton residents, particularly our most vulnerable residents. We achieve our mission by providing and supporting accessible, high-quality, community-based health and social services, community engagement and advocacy, development of health-promoting policies and regulations, disease and injury prevention, emergency services, culturally competent health promotion, and health education services. Also, just as a reminder, we have under the DHHS umbrella, we have 6 divisions, which includes environmental health, public health nursing, emergency preparedness, substance use prevention, public health excellence, and the Northampton Department of Health and Human Services is now housing the newly developed Department of Community Cares. The DCC will be a well-supported branch of the department due to access to health professionals, including nursing staff, the staff of Hampshire Hope, DART, administrative support. And additionally, through DHHS, the DCC will be better poised to leverage grant resources. So this is super exciting. With that being said, one of my first tasks as commissioner of the DHHS, again, thank you very much, counselors, was to develop a fiscal year 23 budget that was inclusive of anticipated expenditures of the newly formed DCC. So with that being said, I've come up with an operating budget total of $1,868,000 and change. 1.7 million of that will be P&S, so our payroll and salary. Out of the 1.7 million for P&S, 1.1 million will come from the general fund and the remainder comes from my grants. The significant increase in the P&S from what before was the health department comes from, number one, we have some salary increases for increased roles and responsibilities. Then we have overtime included in the budget, which the health department never had overtime in its P&S before. And then lastly, we have 7 new positions that have been created for the DCC itself. We have the implementation director, which is Sean Donovan. We have a DCC peer outreach coordinator. We're going to have 3 peer outreach workers, which we will be calling community responders. So that language we might interchange a little bit throughout tonight. We have a full-time social worker that we're hiring, and then we have a program coordinator, administrative support staff that we will be hiring. So all of the 7 positions, except with the exception of the implementation director, are vacant, and we will hopefully be posting for them in the very near future. So also, if you notice on my fiscal year 23 budget, you can see that we have 3 positions that are shared positions with the DCC and the DHHS. This is great because, again, the DCC is getting this really, expert level of support, and some of this is being funded through grants. So we have the public health technology manager, where 30% is being supported of the DCC, well, the DHHS, and 70% is grants. Then we have our grants manager, where 20% comes from the general fund, 80% is grants. And then we have our DCC program coordinator, where 60% is the general fund, 40% is grants. And then we have our deputy commissioner, who is Michelle Fari, where 30% of her salary is coming from the general fund, and 70% is coming from grants. Moving on to our O&M, the O&M is about 166,000. The biggest increase of the O&M, my O&M prior to in the health department was about 43,000. So this is a significant increase, but the biggest increase is going to go to contractual services, which is about 82,000. We're going to be contracting, or we intend to be contracting with a software company to help build out our health information exchange database to support the DCC needs. We're going to be contracting with a company to assess our dispatch data to help identify calls. For DCC response, we're going to be contracting for trainers to help build special skills, marketing, community engagement, and creating a training curriculum for peer outreach workers for the DCC. Other significant increases in the O&M was to office supplies. We put $5,000 in there because we are going to be outfitting some office space. And again, with increased staff, there are going to be more office supplies needs. And then we have $25,000 that went into professional development, conference, and seminars for our staff in itself. So that's kind of the bottom line. It's not a lot in terms of what is going on under the DHHS and budgetarial needs, but if you have any questions, I'm open to answer them.
Yeah, Councilor Labarge.
Thank you. Meredith, I think I heard you talk about the vacancies here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you're right now, are you interviewing on these?
So I have 9 vacancies in total right now under the DHHS, but 7 of them are for the DCC. So the way that we have created our strategic plan for the DCC, we have set some benchmarks on when we're going to be hiring for certain positions. The positions that we're going to be hiring for right away are the admin support position, which is the program coordinator. And then we're thinking sometime around, I want to say July, maybe August, we're going to be advertising to fill our positions for the community responders and the outreach coordinator. The other positions I am currently advertising for, we have a vacant director for the SUD and PHE, and then we also have a vacancy for our HOPE coordinator. And unfortunately, I'm going to have 2 more vacancies coming up. We just posted last week with Human Resources. I have a public health nursing vacancy coming up. Vivian Franklin is leaving the DHHS, unfortunately, but she's going to Yale to get her nurse practitioner's license. So I'm very proud of her. And then we also have for a vacancy coming up our DART coordinators.
I have to say, Meredith, we're going in the right direction here. Combining, the health and human services together, it all makes sense here. And knowing the track record that you have with the Board of Health on how to reach out for grants is magnificent. And I want to thank you for that knowledge, because I think it's very, very valuable of knowing how to go after the money. And I wanted to ask one big question. Once you get organized, basically, which I have talked with Sean Donovan about it, in the community in general, Meredith, because we have, certain agencies that where you have residents who live in their homes, and because of problems that are occurring, will you be working also with counselors on hoping to solve problems with different agencies in the environment of the wards where these problems are occurring?
So most definitely, I plan on sitting down and having a conversation with all of the counselors at some point in the near future once we have our footing. I know several counselors have reached out or said in a prior meeting that I attended that, you either have worked in social services in the past or have value that you could add to the programs that we're going to be developing. So I do want to sit down and have one-on-one conversations with each and every one of you. And also your constituents rely on your voice. So you know what the needs are. So I'm not going to start from ground zero doing community assessments when I can just tap into the resources that I have, which are each and every one of you.
Right. I think probably Sean had talked with you. You were off, but I think he went to Kate. And I'm talking about serious behavior problems here. Okay. And thank God with the experience I have with the state for so many years of working with different types of disabilities of behaviors, I have great concerns. And I have set up a good sized meeting coming up in June with the residents and with the Department of Mental Health from Springfield. So I was just curious if once you get settled in here, when counselors are having problems with community homes and so forth, or agencies in their wards, that we can come and say, we need you to step forth and we need to have a hearing.
Yeah. So it's, it's not my role to fix the agencies that might be defunct. But what I will be doing is acting as a conduit and hopefully be able to provide alternative resources.
Oh, great.
So that is my plan.
I appreciate that, Meredith. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you, Counselor.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you sometime.
You got it.
Okay, counselors. Yes, Counselor Moulton.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. One of the things I feel is very important in staffing the Department of Community Care is providing competitive salaries so that we're attracting top talent to fill those positions that are being created. And I'm wondering what metrics you use to determine your salaries that are listed in the budget, and do you feel that in fact they will be competitive in this environment?
So that's something that keeps me up at night, Councilor Milton. I don't set the metrics, unfortunately. HR, Human Resources in the city, has developed a grading system for job descriptions. It's my job to write the job description, but again, there is a format that needs to be followed. So once the job description is written, I provide it to Human Resources, and then they have to see where it falls under the city metrics for grading. I do not have any say in that. And again, sometimes the grading system relies on special skills, training, education, work experience. And when I'm specifically talking right now, I'm talking about our community responders. We're not asking for a whole litmus of those types of experiences. What we're really looking for is are people that have lived experiences, and then that can translate into helping the people in the population that we serve. And then we will provide the training and qualifications that are needed to do that job. So I do fear where that's going to be put on, the pay equity scale within the city. But when I did take this position, I brought this to the mayor's attention immediately, because I'm afraid if we don't get support from HR in regards to pay equity, that I was setting myself up to fail, to fail the Department of Community Cares. So we've had multiple conversations around this. And I think with the mayor's support and council support and advocating for pay equity, that hopefully we can meet, salary standards where they should be at.
Okay, I appreciate that. I wonder if the mayor wants to address that question as well.
Sure. So, there are many factors that go into deciding where something fits in our pay scale. So HR takes that all into account. But again, these are sort of evolving positions. So we are looking at what we think will work for these positions. But we do have to factor in how they match up with other positions in the city as well.
Thank you.
Councilor Nash.
Thank you, Councilor Maori. Commissioner O'Leary.
All right, I called her director, didn't I?
That doesn't get old.
Plenty of times. Anyway, so as we're developing all of the, I'm looking at your department, and I'm wondering where HIV fits into all of this. I see, we have the drug prevention, we have the new DCC outreach going on. Where does HIV fit into all of this?
So, yep.
But sure. I just want to say, this is based on, my godson was doing HIV outreach work out in Boston, and he's saying that HIV is through the roof in Boston, and especially with the houseless population. And I'm wondering if we're seeing that here, and how that fits in. So that's my. I'm done now. Go ahead.
Yep. No. So the State Department of Public Health has a whole HIV division, and we don't even actually get the numbers of people, qualitative numbers of the number of people or Northampton residents that are affected with HIV. We're not privileged to that information because, again, the State Department of Public Health has that entire division just for HIV support. We do partner with agencies that do, harm reduction. And, one of the things that's focused on is HIV and other, blood transmissible infectious diseases. And it is our intention to continue to partner with that. And, our substance use prevention team their philosophy is all around harm reduction, incorporates that into all of their messaging. So it's not so much siloed, but we kind of group it together under our harm reduction umbrella. But we do have a greater support with the State Department of Public Health.
And are we seeing that an increase in the area, or
so
they are in Boston? That
Western Mass does have an increase too. They don't, it's not granular data, so I couldn't get it just for Northampton, but for Region 1, which is Western Massachusetts, there is a slight increase. And actually, Michelle Fari might have a better answer to this question because this is something that she deals with a lot under the heart, under substance use prevention. So if you want to invite her on to see if she can tackle that, I'd be more than happy to invite her in.
Oh yeah, let's let her in.
Yeah.
Oh, I can unmute tonight. Ooh.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Meredith is absolutely right. We are subject to the Department of Public Health taking the leadership role around HIV, but we do incorporate with Tapestry Health a lot of discussions on harm reduction, safety planning, and safe injection practices. A couple of the really notable efforts is we've partnered with the UMass School of Nursing and Professor Kim Dion to do emergency department trainings on how to talk to people that use substances and inject their drugs, to think about best practices when injecting, which, believe it or not, is not something that typically will happen in the emergency department, and is a pretty big upsell to get providers comfortable talking about that. Also, really thinking about discussions around wound care. So sepsis infections have been on the rise. With what we know about fentanyl use is it has a much shorter shelf life and the way it's metabolized in the body. So people inject more now than they might have in our previous heroin drug supply. So when more injection, more risk. And so we work really hard to talk to people about that, have those conversations. Other areas of concern outside of HIV rising, and that's a national issue, not just a Massachusetts-based issue or a Boston issue. This is a very big talking point coming from the CDC as well around the substance use and prevention work, is Hep A, Hep B, and Hep C. So it's pretty much across the board, and we can attribute that predominantly to the increase in use in injecting drugs with the way fentanyl has poisoned their drug supply. So absolutely, I'm afraid, is it Counselor Nash or is it President Nash? I want to say it.
Counselor, please.
If he's behaving well, you can say President Nash.
Yeah, I'm getting my hang of it here. Meredith has been mentoring me. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you for that. That was great. I'm glad to hear that it's on, Health and Human Services radar, that it's not siloed, that, all of everybody's on the same page about getting information out there. And I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. That was interesting background.
Yes.
Sobering background.
Yep.
No.
Very thorough.
I have a question for Director Donovan, if no one else has something. A broad strokes question. What I want for the community care department is for you to grow at a comfortable rate. And if I just want to check in that you feel this budget allows your department to kind of grow at a reasonable rate without feeling slowed down by the budget. It's not an easy thing to create something out of nothing, and to me it sounds like kind of an art form. So there's so many unknowns really. So I was just curious about your thoughts on that, Director.
Thank you, Councilor Mary. I will start by saying I don't know if we'd be at this place of actually expanding this department without working closely with Deputy Commissioner Ferry and Commissioner O'Leary. So I'm so grateful for this, the way that we've been working together so quickly, so rapidly recently. And I do feel like this next year is going to be a combination of further implementation, meaning, we're really going to look at how we can in a very grounded, very research-based way, but also community engaged way, think about becoming another first responder team for a city. That's going to be really useful and contextually, helpful. But we also are trying to start, with some bit of our community responder hiring, as Commissioner O'Leary already detailed. So I feel really good about where we're at, though there are still a lot of unknowns. I just want to echo some of what Commissioner O'Leary said about some of the contracts that we're quickly, coming to agreement around, that we have people that are helping us with community engagement, with like understanding the dispatch data that we have at our hands already, and also, helping us figure out how we can evaluate our work with an outside evaluator. So there's like help we're soliciting, beyond our city, as well as figuring out what sort of interdepartmental connections will still be, forging between public health and public safety. So I do feel like we have a big task ahead of us,
Right.
certainly. But I feel like, with this collaboration, just to echo some other pieces, we're not building the Department of Community Care from scratch. There's so much, in many ways, in which the DCC will be sharing sort of the wealth of information and expertise from a lot of our data management experts, including Michelle Ferry and the team from DART and Hampshire Hope, and just in the public health and human services at large. So yeah, I'm feeling like it's a big task ahead, but we have the tools we need right now to kind of move forward. So that's my broad stroke, and I want to just invite Commissioner O'Leary to share anything else that feels important too, if it's helpful.
Thank you, Sean. I think you summarized that really well.
Okay.
I'll leave the space open to counselors if they have any other questions.
Thanks.
Counselor Foster.
It's a question in formation, so bear with me. But I really appreciate the presentation, and I think over the last couple of years, on so many fronts, public health has become just such a spotlighted issue. For a while, I think we'd associated it with HIV and opioid crisis, and now we're looking at COVID and community response. And so it's just, the enormity of what's in front of you to care for our community. It's really stark, and I appreciate all of the hard work and thought and sort of foresight that's going into it. And I guess a question I have is around, it's not totally budget related, but I'm going to frame this in the budget for the discussion, but around ideas for prevention or initiatives that you're looking at prevention. And I'm thinking largely mental health, but physical health. I know years ago there was like fitness in Pulaski Park, and some ideas that we were looking at, not just addressing, and I understand the last couple of years have been very addressing what's in front of us, but I'm wondering what ideas or initiatives or thoughts or funding you may be seeking around some of the prevention initiatives as well.
So that is a great question. Behavioral health related issues is at the forefront of, what comes to mind when we talk about, where we are going to invest our time and resources. And honestly, my vision is to really kind of start at the root and get to the children and help develop curriculum within our, we have an NPC coordinator now. And when the kids are at formidable ages, to really start programmatically having, instituting, types of development programs to help at that level, and then, move forward through life. I feel like, the past couple decades, we've seen a huge shift in behavioral health related diseases that we didn't see, 30 years ago. So I really want to focus on that. I think that, for the first year when I'm thinking about instituting programs. So anything that embodies that. we have also working with our Mass in Motion team. They work on, the built-in street, the built-in environments issue, like tapping into what's already out there and building, dovetailing on those resources is going to be super important. But I feel like the DHHS umbrella just kind of opens up a whole new world for us. I mean, we are in the driving seat to tackle so many important topics. It's been a whirlwind, counselor, and honestly, I haven't spent a lot of time on what the future holds for DHHS because much of my focus right now is help getting the DCC up and operating. But after we have our footing there, the possibilities are endless. And I am just super excited and honored to be given the privilege to work on these things.
I know.
Councilor Foster.
Yeah, and just a comment around your focus and Director Donovan and Michelle and Commissioner O'Leary, your focus on bringing the Department of Community Care, it's something that has such incredibly broad community support and enthusiasm. And I know I've commented on this before, but 2 years ago, there wasn't grand, broad throughout the city conversations around alternative responses to policing or to issues and calls that have been traditionally handled by policing. And to see now, when I have conversations with residents, and just over the last few weeks, I've had a number of conversations that have involved situations where, by this time next year, we'll be calling for assistance from the Department of Community Care. And as I talk with residents about the department and the need, it's really something to see the very, very broad community support for this work. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm really excited for what you're all taking on and getting up and running.
Deputy Director Ferry, did you have a comment that you wanted to make? I thought you had your hand up. Maybe.
I just wanted to mention I used to love the program that Meredith and Commissioner O'Leary had started with the fitness in the park. We had so much fun and met so many great community members when we did that. I just wanted to highlight one other key area of interest in this intersection that I think is probably a little interesting for a little fun fact and takeaway from our work. We've been partnering with the Western Mass School of Occupational Therapy for the past 3 or 4 years to mentor and foster doctoral students coming out of the OT program there. And their whole focus has been to kind of deconstruct our work and think about all areas of health and wellness and intersections of them. We've had several products that have come out of that that have been amazing for community use, that have been good for businesses, as well as for our substance use related interventions. And that's a really new innovation that the city, and I'm very proud of the leadership of Commissioner O'Leary in supporting that. One of them currently is looking at how the intake process happens for someone who decides to have medication for their opiate use disorder or substance use disorder, to be more friendly and thinking about that whole person perspective. And even just the simple intake process on how is your dental health? How is your sleep hygiene? How is your exercise regimen? There's so much to us as people that often gets deconstructed in the service form that people are either medically getting billed for services or trying to help self-promote. But we really think about the whole person of the DHHS, and that's the leadership that we have been under and through the health department and now as the commission. And we're thrilled to grow that post-COVID and thinking how we can try and address and support people's whole, health, wellness, and environment, so that they're really feeling more like you don't have to be one or the other when you're presenting yourself to a provider. You can get a little bit more of an a la carte menu for everything. So just wanted to highlight that as a really great project.
Thank you for that. That's really good to know. How wonderful.
I know.
I didn't know about that. Yeah, anyone else? Oh yes, Councilor Garrett.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner O'Leary. So many of my questions were answered as we were approving the DHHS order. So thank you for taking that time as we did that. And also I really wanted to thank Michelle Fari and Sean Donovan for meeting with me the other week to discuss community representation and input and an advisory board, and look forward to how that moves along. I had a question about the Resilience Hub. Is the role of DHHS, it's really hard to say that, reflected in this budget, the role that will play in the Resilience Hub, or is that just too far off in terms of we're still stuck with finding a location for it? And maybe that's a question for the mayor too.
So absolutely, that's something that we are talking as we develop, the DCC. What is the role? Where are the intersects? We're having weekly meetings with Gilad, who works for Community Action, who is in charge of the programmatic pieces of the Resilience Hub. So just because we don't have space doesn't necessarily mean that we're not talking about this in ways that we can partner together. Part of my vision is that we actually have office space within the Resilience Hub, so our community responders have a space to go to, and to act, because a lot of the people that we're going to be serving might be using the Resilience Hub. So creating relationships there, and having conversations and opening up dialogue prior to any type of crisis event can be, as we know, super helpful. So not only are community responders having space there, but perhaps our social worker also taking up some hours there and help, staffing that. In addition to part of the conversation that we're having is having integrated into the Resilience Hub a quiet space for, anytime there is a crisis event where someone that they're helping, to a quiet space that's open 24/7, So conversations are happening. I think it's a little preliminary to say exactly, what we're going to be doing in regards to the Resilience Hub, but between the mayor, Community Action, and my staff, we're keeping up to date and making sure that, we're speaking to the right people.
Great,
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's okay. I'll just add that, so as you know, the city is committed to sort of creating the home for the Resilience Hub, but we are not the lead agency. So, Community Action is the lead agency, and then we will work with all of the other agencies. But I agree with Commissioner O'Leary that the hope now is, as everything has sort of evolved over the last 6 months or so, that we hope that we will eventually have a home for the hub that will have space to have DHHS in it and DCC, and have us all sort of be in that same place while even while we're not the lead agency that will be handling sort of the organization of the other the other sort of co-agencies with us. But it will be a lovely I think partnership to have DHHS there. And I agree that I think it helps with sort of that continuum of caring for folks, that it makes sense to have all of those connections in the same spot, and will lead us to better outcomes in the end. If the crisis calls that we are going on, we can then have direct connections in the hub and work together in that way.
Great, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions or comments from either counselors or from commissioners or directors? Oh, President Nash.
Thank you, Chair Maori.
You behaved so well the last 10 minutes I promoted you to president.
No, I just want to say how exciting all of this is. It just that we're talking about all of this new programming. It's super cool, and that's it. This is really exciting. And Mayor, thanks for helping pull all this together and start making it happen. So that's it.
And I just wanted to make the comment that I think this is just such a great time to be expanding this department because, I mean, you look at, I was just, looking at mental health issues among pandemic minors, and it's really sobering, eating disorders and all sorts of mental health issues. And those aren't going to go away. And so there's going to be all this kind of repercussions from that coming our way as folks get older. And so I think having this in place now is just really good timing. So yay.
Yep.
Okay, so can we let these folks go? I think we can. Thank you, Commissioner. I got it right now. Thank you, Director and Deputy Director.
Thank
Thank you,
so much.
counselors. Have a great night.
You
Night.
too. Well, oh my goodness. I'm kind of shocked. that
We
it's
moved right along.
4-8. So as we're technically continuing the public hearing until tomorrow, we don't vote to close the hearing because we're just going to continue it. So,
Right, and I think also we have to do is recess from finance and then go back into the full council. The hearing is posted for tomorrow in tomorrow's agenda. So, but Chair Mayor, you can let everybody know we'll be back tomorrow.
okay. Yes, tomorrow at 6 p.m. we'll be hearing from the Northampton School Department and the Northampton Police Department. And those will be our two departments tomorrow that will be hearing presentations, and the same format will apply. And I think I need a motion here in finance to adjourn. No?
To adjourn.
Second,
Thank you. Roll call, Laura. Thank you.
Laura Labarge. Councillor Labarge?
Oh, here.
Okay, okay.
I didn't hear you, sorry.
Oh, okay. Just taking roll on motion to adjourn. And Councillor Maori,
Yes.
Councillor Moulton,
yes.
and Councillor Nash.
Yes. Okay. We're now back in the full council, and there's nothing else on our special meeting agenda. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second it.
I'll make the motion then to adjourn.
Okay, motion made by Councillor Perry, seconded by Councillor Labarge. And there's no discussion on adjourning. Laura, roll call, please.
Councillor Elkins.
Oh, I didn't know if I get to vote since I wasn't here at the beginning.
You can vote to adjourn.
Thank you. And apologies for not being here at the beginning. I got called away for work at the last minute. So I'll watch the video.
Okay. Councillor Foster.
Yes.
Councillor Gore.
Yes.
Councillor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councillor Labarge.
Yes.
Councillor Maori.
Yes.
Councillor Moulton. I think I heard a yes. Councillor.
Yes, yes, I've unstable internet, but yes.
Okay. Councillor Nash
Yes.
and Councillor Perry.
Yes.
Okay. All right, cool. We'll see everybody tomorrow. We're doing this again. We got 2 more